Welcome to the Mind Your Business Show. I am your host, Tony Calloway, the private money godfather, and you need to go grab your pen and paper right now because today we're going to talk about planning your successful business launch. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Tony Calloway, the private money godfather, and we're glad to have you here with the Mind Your Business Show. And as I said in the intro, today we're going to focus on a topic that is timely because we get calls every day, people looking to start businesses. Understanding how important it is to plan, we're going to talk today about planning your successful business launch. Now, from the standpoint of people wanting to accomplish, their dream of going into business, I often say that there are three things that people want to do. They want to write a book, they want to invest in real estate, and they want to own their own business. Today, we're going to talk about that business thing. But all of us have heard the statistics. And that is most businesses fail. In fact, according to the Small Business Administration in 2019, of the 31.7 million businesses that started, 90% of them failed. That's 9 out of 10. So that's a tremendous failure rate. So what I want to help you to do is, if you have an ambition, if you have a dream of starting a business, we're going to give you the highest possibility that you can achieve of having success by doing some great planning. Now, as you're seeing, it doubles your chances of success by having a business plan. Now, that's from smallbiztrends.com. But now here's something I really want to emphasize to you, because I have this saying, and that is, do what the money tells you to do. Now, most people, whether you're getting money from a bank or a private lender, or even from the standpoint of bringing investors in, they have expectations, they have criteria, they have underwriting standards. So if they tell you what it is that they want you to do in order to get their money, they're telling you what you need to do to be successful. So check this out. 70% of the 3,600 venture capitalists perceive that having a written business plan is a very important thing. Now, I did the math already because I can't say I do it in my head, but 70% of 3,640 is over 2,500. 2,500 people are telling you that you need to have a business plan, and in this case, they're talking about a written business plan, and that's from GoBizPlans.com. But we're not going to do business plans today. I'm going to give you the thinking that needs to go into that process of developing your business plan, because there's this saying that comes from Brian Tracy. He's a renowned sales trainer and business consultant, and that is, if you do what people who have succeeded have done, and you don't do the things that people who have failed didn't do, you have a tremendous chance at being successful. So here's what I want you to start thinking about as you're planning your successful business launch. You need to describe your business concept in terms of the customer's needs. The customer, that's what the business is all about, serving a customer. Now, you have to also develop a distribution and service delivery concept to make sure that you can deliver your services or your product to the customer. Develop a marketing concept that generates adequate sales, because you got to have that revenue to keep the business alive and flowing. And then determine what it's going to take, the resources and the capital that are going to be necessary to operate for 12 months. And then before you go live and go full bore on everything, you need to plan a pre-launch test. Let's see if it's actually going to work based on the things that you thought about, and get some feedback so that you can do some refinements, so that when you launch your business, you've done the things that are important to planning a successful business launch. This program is sponsored by the Private Money Syndicate, where we help people to power their dreams, yes, those going into business dreams, with private money. So we'd invite you to reach out to us at privatemoneysyndicate.com, or you can give us a call at 706-888-3719, and we'll be glad to help you to power your dreams with private money. All right, so now let's get into it, folks. Get your pen and paper ready, because this is the stuff that you definitely want to capture. All right, the first thing is you have to understand that I don't care what business you have. I don't care what business you're thinking about going to. It's all about the customer. Who is going to pay you? All right, so here's the things you need to contemplate. Who is your customer? It's very specific terms, because I'll just use the example as we go through this today of someone who loves baking cakes, all right? So now, who is your specific customer? Now, from the standpoint of cakes, everybody who eats cakes is a potential customer, but as we go through this process, we're going to see that there are some very clear delineations and filtration that you go through as you start thinking about how you're going to develop your business when it comes down to baking the cake. See, that's your side of the equation. You've got to solve a problem for somebody. Now, most people don't have a problem eating cake, okay? The problem is something perhaps outside of the actual cake itself, and we're going to explore that in a minute. And then, why are they going to buy it from you, all right? If it comes down to the fact that, hey, this person has a problem that relates to cakes, why are they going to do business with you? So let's get a little bit more inside of the customer question right here. All right, so it says, who is your customer? What I want you to do is I want you to draft, which means write, okay, scribe, a description of your customer. Okay, so now, again, I could probably be a customer. You can probably tell. Yes, I do like cake. My favorite is chocolate. All right, so, and a carrot cake too, but as a matter of fact. All right, but, to the extent that there's something in your mind that you see as the person you expect to be doing business with. And I just kind of dig into this a little bit more. Let's say that you see yourself having a retail store where people come in and buy your cakes. Maybe you're baking cakes that you're going to wholesale out to grocery stores or other businesses where they might actually serve your cake as part of the dessert offerings that they have. I've actually seen businesses where they have a website and people order and they send the cakes off packed in dry ice to whoever the customer is. So from the standpoint of, as you think through this entire process, by the time we get to the end of it, I want you to be able to write down a very clear description of your customer, because that is who has the money that they're going to exchange with you for your product or service. And again, our example today is using something simple like baking cakes. Now, what's the problem that you solve for that customer? All right, so let's just suppose that this is a restaurant, somebody who likes to cook, whatever it is they serve as a dish, but they're not a pastry chef. They don't do desserts and things like that. So instead of your customer being me, who wants to eat cake at my dinner table, your customer in that case is solving the problem of having a dessert offering for a restaurant that doesn't necessarily have their own in-house capability to produce the cakes that it is you be able to produce for them. So you see that difference right there in solving a problem? Let's say that someone is on the fly and they want to get cake very quickly. Okay, so how can you make it convenient? Could you have your cakes packaged and sitting in a convenience store somewhere, on the shelf in the freezer cooler at a convenience store? All right, not a grocery store, but a convenience store. And going to the grocery store, we've all seen Sara Lee cakes. All right, so Sara Lee's cakes are mass produced and they're in grocery stores. You pick them up when you're doing your grocery shopping. All that's cake, but all those things are solving different problems. So the grocery store cake, the Sara Lee, is something that somebody wants to take home and enjoy at their own convenience. All right, so now the third point is what makes them buy from you. Now here's one thing I want to tell you is one of the biggest mistakes in my 30-some odd years of working with businesses, and most people say that people are going to buy from me because I've got the lowest price. Don't be the cheapest, okay? Because it's a race to the bottom. I would rather say I've got the most expensive cakes, but people buy my cake because it is the freshest, it's got the most vibrant flavors to it, and it's easy to get, and we'll even send it to you, or whatever the case might be. And for all the quality, all the convenience, we're going to charge a premium price, but you're going to love it. I'm just saying, so having the lowest price is not the solution, but you've got to find a reason why people are going to buy from you. Now, stepping off to the side, let's just say that if you're in the desert and you're going to sell water, well, people are going to buy from you because you got the only source of what it is that they need. But now if you're in a competitive environment, then there's got to be a reason inherent to the customer's situation or need that is going to make them choose to do business with you. And I've given you several examples of whether it's a consumer's customer or if it's a business-to-business customer, using the grocery store example or a restaurant. There's got to be a reason why they're buying from you. And I'll give you one. Let's just go back to the grocery store again. All right, so the grocery store puts it on their shelf. Shelf space is like, precious real estate in a grocery store, especially in the refrigerated section. That's like, the stuff's got to sell. So maybe they'll choose to use your cakes because you do a lot of advertising. okay, because they know that you're creating demand for your product, and all they have to do is make it available and people are going to come in and buy it. So that will be a reason why they want to buy from you versus somebody else who might be doing the same thing. You know, some of these local type of vendor relationships where, you know, they just put it in there, but you're doing some local marketing, some local advertising, regional, national, doesn't necessarily matter, but the fact of the matter is that is a reason why that store would choose to carry your product. Now, if it came down to an individual, you know, what will make them want to buy your product? Well, maybe because you make it easy for them to get, because you deliver. You bake cakes to order. You do any things that create a solution for a customer, because the solutions might not be cake. The solutions might be cake but timeliness. The solution might be cake plus price. The solution might be cake and the convenience of it being delivered. All of those things are a reason why people choose to do business with you. You can think of any business that you do business with. There are probably multiple vendors or providers who do the very same thing, but there's a very specific reason why you choose to do this. And I'll give you one more example about choosing to do business with. Now, we all have seen Family Dollars and Dollar Generals, and what's the other one? Anyway, they're on every other corner. Now, there is one that I go to, Family Dollar, because it is the one that I pass on the way to my house. I mean, it's like right there where I make the turn. It's easy to get into, easy to get back out and get on my way. That's the reason why I go to that one. Now, I pass 4 or 5 other ones, but they're either on the wrong side of the road or they're past where, you know, my house is, or, you know, something like that. So all these little factors are things that you want to think about in terms of why you perceive that your customer will do business with you. So the first thing you have to understand is, as it says at the top, it's all about the customer. You've got to know who they are, you've got to solve their problem, and you have to understand clearly and distinctly why they choose to do business with you. All right, so I've talked through a few of these things in the course of talking about the customer, but now let's just suppose that you've determined that solution that you're discussing. And we'll go back to cakes again. So now you have to determine your distribution and delivery system for your product or service. Now, it says product or service because, again, if you have a service business, you have to determine how you're going to make that service available. But here, as far as what you need to do, it says describe how your product or service will be delivered in a profitable manner. So considering the fact that, let's say that your product is the cake and you're going to make it available in restaurants, then you have to determine what the need and how many the restaurant might need, because you want to be fresh, how much they sell through in a given day or a couple of days. And then from the standpoint, are they going to come pick it up? Or are you going to take it to them? Do they place their order 3 days in advance, a week in advance? You know, what are all those particular attributes that relate to you getting the product to the customer? If your customer were to be the individual who wants to have a cake, let's say they want a custom-made birthday cake. All right, so from the standpoint of how do they place their order? Do they come in? Do they call in? Do you have a website? You know, do they come in and get a sample and then say, hey, this is the one I want from a selection that you might have available? All those factors are part of determining the distribution and delivery model. All right, so that's very important, because the key thing that is part of that statement is says in a profitable manner. Now, I think another one of the big things, a lot of times I'll say you know, it's not there are several, but another of the big things that people don't factor is, okay, what is it going to cost me to package the product? You might think of what does it cost to bake the cake, but now you got to have boxes. Or I use the suggestion that maybe you could ship it all across the country in dry ice. Well, what is that going to cost to get dry ice? What is it going to cost? How are you going to ship it? Well, if you're going to send it FedEx, it's going to cost more than you send it through United States Postal Service. I'm not going to drag the Postal Service, but I sent something 2-day priority that took a week, all right? But if it absolutely positively has to be there overnight, it costs a heck of a lot more, all right? So now you have to factor all of those into your price and your costs, because in order for you to stay in business, you have to make a profit. And that profit is what's left over after you brought in the revenue, covered all the costs. That's your profit. And so you really need to think that through in detail and do the research to determine, based on your customer and based on how you perceive that you will deliver your product or service, what is it going to cost, so that you have enough margin for you to maintain a profit for your business. Because honestly, as we all know, that's how your business is going to stay alive, by doing all the figuring to make sure that you can get the product to the customer in a profitable manner. All right, so now let's talk about creating demand. Marketing, which is advertising and sales. A lot of people, you know, muddle the line between marketing, sales, advertising. To most people, it's all the same thing. Well, marketing is like the big overall context. A subset to that is advertising, which is as I call it, the advertising is what gets people into the store, and the sales part is what gets them to the cash register. All right. So let's talk about creating a brand message. All right. So whether your business is word of mouth, whether you have flyers, websites, social media, billboards, doesn't necessarily matter. What are you communicating to that customer? It helps them to understand the value that you bring in terms of your product and service. All right, let's now, I don't know how old most of you are, but you can Google it if you don't have this frame of reference. I'm going to use hamburgers, all right, just as an analogy, because again, the messaging is important. All right, now when McDonald's started the fast food back in the 60s, you know, their focus was on speed. Now, the times were changing. People were having cars, the interstates were developed, people were traveling, and now, as opposed to people having to cook their own and package it up like we used to do back when I was growing up, you could stop somewhere and pick it up, and so their thing was mass production. It was fast and it was inexpensive, all right? Now, the next one that came along was Burger King. Now, again, with mass production, the McDonald's model, everybody got the same thing. In fact, if you research Ray Kroc, you know, he said that, you know, they actually determined exactly how many pickles were going on every hamburger, and you know, it was basically hamburgers, fries, milkshakes, and soda. That was it. There was no grand set of options like you'll see in McDonald's today. Now, Burger King came along, and their slogan was, "Have it your way." All right, have it your way, which means that you could determine whether you want pickle, lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, mustard, whatever you wanted. They would produce it fast, but it would be customized to your needs. So their branding message was, have it your way. So you see these differences here. Now, you might think of another set of businesses that have slogans and things like that, but all that goes into the branding message. All right, I mentioned FedEx, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. All right, that's a branding message. That helps you to understand exactly what the proposition is that is attractive to that customer. All right, and so I gave you my analogy with the Postal Service. Again, Post Office, I'm just telling the truth. All right, and FedEx. All right, so to the extent that now if I wanted to get there, I don't care when it gets there, but I wanted to get there inexpensively, I've got the U.S. Postal Service. They're both in the same business, delivering parcels and packages and letters, but they have different value propositions. Now, the Post Office says, what is that? Rain or slow, whether rain or snow or sleet or dark of night, we will deliver your package, something like that. You probably have heard that too. All right, so now the second point is where, when, and how to get the branding message in front of your customer. Now, again, social media creates a lot of opportunities to get your message in front of your customer. And the great thing about Facebook and many of these other social media platforms is they give you all these analytics that you can use to understand exactly what demographic, gender, race, age group, geography you can target those things. Because again, if your business, going back to cakes, is a local distribution hub, because you figure you can drive in your car, van, or truck and get it there to the restaurant or to the customer, then you don't need to advertise nationally. All right, you can use social media to target the locality, and again, on social media, you start friending people in a certain age group or demographic and running your ads. If you want to do something more broadly, then there's direct mail, there's email marketing, there's text message marketing, and then we got the traditional television marketing, which we've got the broadcast networks, the cable networks, and then you got billboards, you got everything. I mean, there are plenty of mediums for you to use, but again, social media is either free or real daggum close to it, but you need to be very clear as understanding where, when, and how you want to get that message, that branding message in front of your customer. All right, so now that is the advertising part. Now the transaction about how are people going to pay for the product, how are they going to get it, and how are you going to process payment. All right, is it a cash register where people are going to come up and they're going to pay you cash or swipe their card? If they're going to swipe the card, you've got to have a card reader, right? Okay, or is it where you're going to invoice people and they're going to pay you after delivery, COD, cash on delivery. And now the technology of how you receive payment, whether it's cash, check, or electronic transaction, that is generally ubiquitous. But the thing is, you need to think through this process, because if you're selling a product, say on terms, or a service on terms, case in point, I had a guy who called, he wanted to see if he could get some funding because he had installed an air conditioner unit for a customer, and the customer, I don't know how they managed to do this, apparently he didn't follow what I'm talking about, he didn't know the guy didn't have the money. Okay, and it's like $8,000. So fortunately, I helped them to work it out, not through what we do at the private money syndicate. I referred them to a lender here in the local area. But that is the antithesis of what not to do. You need to say, okay, who is my customer? How much does it cost? You need to make sure they can pay. Now, you can have in-house financing. You can have a relationship with a lender, kind of like what I did in this particular case. Or you can, depending on the product or service, obviously air conditioning is pretty expensive, but you can let people pay over time. You can have them pay a deposit, and then they can pay the balance after you've produced or delivered or given them the product. All those are things you need to think through because that is part of the customer experience. Some people, and a case in point, I'll give you another great example. I had a guy who came to me to get set up with in-house financing. He was a plumber. And he was telling me he would go bid on jobs, and other plumbers would bid almost twice as much as he bid on the job, but they get the job because they would provide in-house financing. Because when your toilet backs up, you don't necessarily plan on that event. And now if you don't have the money to pay the plumber, if you had to choose to pay somebody, $2,000 who was going to allow you to have in-house financing, basically a lender loans you the money to pay them, then you pay them back. He got paid, he's off to the races. Versus somebody's going to say $1,000, you ain't got $1,000, so you can't do business with them, you're still stuck with the problem. So even if the price is higher, the fact that, considering how the payment process is going to take place can provide value to the customer. And I hope you understand and appreciate that. So again, marketing, which is the advertising and sales, you got to think through these points. The brand message, how are you going to get it out to people, and how are you going to actually consummate the transaction with your customer. All right, so now that we're looking at who the customer is for our product or service, obviously there's a cost associated with product or service. We factored in how we're going to get it to them. There's some costs associated with that. We look at how we're going to do our marketing. There's a cost associated with that. And we figure we want to make a profit, so we got to figure all this stuff up. So how much capital is it going to take for me to get this business launched? And I always tell people, figure what is it going to take for you to operate for 12 months. Now, not saying you're not going to have revenue, but we're going to be conservative in your thinking. But the main point I want to make here is I tell people bootstrapping is a way to fund a business, but it's generally the reason or the biggest reason why 90% of businesses fail. There are a lot of ways that you can access capital, but you need to know how much is it going to take. You really need to sit down and think through it. And a lot of people, I think, are afraid of the big number. They say, well, I can get started with $5,000 on my credit card, or I got it in my bank account, or what have you. But let's say if you do what I'm suggesting, and you do all the math, let's say it costs $50,000. $50,000. Well, I would suggest that you go to task and figure out how you fund the enterprise, how you're going to raise the money. How much is going to come in through cash flow. So let's just say $50,000, and you say, well, now I can go pursue getting a loan, I can bring in some partners. And again, partners are great because sometimes partners can provide services that don't require you to pay them, okay? So let's just go back to our baking analogy. Let's say that you partner with somebody who does delivery, okay? And y'all somehow work out a way to split the cost. So now you've got that partner who is helping you to provide the value proposition to the customer. You both benefit and profit from the revenue. Well, you didn't have to go buy a van, or you didn't have to make some other capital investment. Now, granted, partners also share in the revenue, unless you buy them out at some point in the future, but the fact of the matter is, all these things happen. So if you need to get other people involved in your business along with raising capital, then you need to figure out that is a solution set that can help you to not only get started, but be successful in your business. You've lowered your risk profile substantially. So now after you've figured out how much it's going to take, $50,000 in our example, let's say that you figured out how you're going to get the money, you got some savings, you got decent credit, so you go out there and get a loan, and let's just say you bring your brother-in-law in who's got the van, who is going to make the local deliveries, and y'all figured out a split on the profits, okay? Now you need to use reports to understand how the money is coming in and how the money is going out. I've said this 100 times. You need to have your business set up separate from your personal finances by having a business account. I encourage you to have an LLC or a corporation, but you need to have every dollar from the first dollar that you put into the business is $50,000, let's say it's all cash. You put it in that account and you start watching to see what's happening. All right, because one of the bigger reasons that people go out of business as it relates to financing, they're making money, but they don't know if they're making profit. Just because money is coming in and you're not accounting for all the expenses, you're putting it all in an income and expense statement, that's the one you would use for this particular case. Are you making money or losing money? If you see the balance of the account starting to continually go down, then you might need to have another capital infusion. That's when you might want to tap into that credit card or that credit line to keep things going. Because oftentimes, the business starts off slow. Another situation is, let's say that you sell on terms. Let's say that you have a contract that they pay you 60 days after you've delivered the service, but you've got to buy all the equipment, you've got to buy all the parts and pieces. Maybe you have to pay people. I've got a guy who does technology work. He goes out and goes to the businesses all across the country, where he's got hotels, airfare, and all that other kind of stuff before he gets paid 60 days from now. How are you going to manage the cash flow situation? So again, having your income and expense statement, having your balance sheet showing the assets and liabilities growing or shrinking or however the math works out, all of those are parts of being able to track and see how the business is performing. And as part of your upfront planning, you also establish your budgets. All right, so those three things, your budgets, your income and expense statement, and your balance sheet are three tools, just like a pilot in an aircraft has his altimeter, he has his heading, and then he has his attitudinal artificial horizon, let him know if he's going up or down, left or right, and obviously how high it is above ground level. I used to have a pilot's license, so again, those three things in business are very much like the three things I'm talking about. But you've got to think all this through as part of your planning process in developing and planning your successful business launch. The Private Money Syndicate, our sponsor, is here to help with all of that stuff, especially the money part. So, we want you to give us a call at 706-888-3719, or as you see, you can go to privatemoneysyndicate.com, and our slogan, our message, our branding message is your dreams powered with private money. See, I'm giving you an example, even though I'm giving you a little advertisement here. All right. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is you've done all this thinking, you're ready to get things going, so it's important to test your assumptions. I was in the military, I was an intelligence officer. I know they say the military and intelligence are two words that shouldn't go together, but the key thing is that part of our mission in Intel, as part of supporting the combat commander, is to eliminate assumptions. We need to know. So anything that we can know, we go about a very rigorous process to get that information, and then also define what we don't know. So here it says, identify the several key assumptions. You might be assuming that the restaurants that you're going to make these cakes for will buy your cakes wholesale for $20 because they can sell it by the slice and make $100. I'm just making up some numbers there because your cake is awesome, okay? But now, obviously, you figured out that you can make that cake for $20 and make a profit on it. Now, that's an assumption. Now, the way to test that assumption is to go talk to some folks who have restaurants that don't serve desserts. Or it might be more cost-effective for them because, see, here's the thing I know about food. It's perishable. Now, if they are buying the ingredients to make cake but they don't sell it all, that goes to waste. All right, but if they're buying from you and they know that they're selling it through, then they have no waste. Now, they might pay you more than it would cost internally, but when you factor in waste, you might have a better solution. But you've got to determine, is the price point that they'll buy it from, so you could do it two ways. They call it A/B test. You could say, okay, $20 to some, $40 to others, and see which ones say yes. If you get enough to say yes to 40, it would be kind of dumb to sell it 20, right? Okay, or the different channels. You might have little mom and pop restaurants, and then you might have a chain restaurant, a local chain. Somebody's got 4 or 5 different locations that might say, oh yeah, and you might have 2 different costs because they're not necessarily competing for the same customer. But again, if you're making a profit by selling more volume, then those are things that you discover through testing. It says, then develop a plan to test each and analyze the feedback. Now, as you're doing all these things, you assume that your distribution model, you assume that your pricing, you assume that your branding message, you assume all these things are going to resonate because they make sense to you. You got to be willing to go through the exercise to put these things out there on some limited basis in part or in whole and get feedback to see what you were assuming that was inaccurate. It could have been inaccurate that you undershot what you could have done. It might be inaccurate because you were assuming that you would generate more revenue. It might be that you thought the marketing costs would be less, the packaging costs would be less, the delivery costs, it's cheaper than I thought it would be because I can get a contract and doing it one at a time with FedEx. I'm just saying. So all these things become experiments that you want to explore and get details and data that help you refine your planning as part of the planning process. So you want to test using pre-launch events. Now, by events, I say that, if you want to have a taste testing, okay, you go around, take your favorite cake slices of these different restaurants and have them taste. You might have them come in to a location. You rent a little, space somewhere, and you invite all the restaurant to it. I mean, you decide what you're going to do, and then you're sitting there talking to them. What would you pay for this? Here's what we plan on doing. How many would you get all this data, you get all this information, and that's something a lot of people don't do. But I promise you, if you do that, you're going to put yourself on the side of the angels. And the last thing I want to talk about here is your 2-minute elevator pitch. You need to be in an elevator going up from the first floor to the 20th, where you might have 2 minutes to talk to somebody, tell them what it is that you do, how you do it, and why they might want to do business with you. All right, so now most people can tell you about their business, and it takes them a half a day, okay? You still don't know what they're talking about, okay? This is an art, okay? One that you need to practice, all right? So, going back to your key proposition, your marketing message, I just use the example of the Private Money Syndicate. We power dreams with private money. I said it before, people often want to do three things. They want to start a business, they want to invest in real estate, they want to write a book. Well, we can help you with two of those. We can finance your real estate, or we can finance your business. And we give you consulting support to help you to be successful by providing resources of talent and knowledge for the things that you don't necessarily have in your quiver. And we also provide the capital to make sure that those things all come together to be successful for you. Now, isn't that what you want? You want to be successful in your business pursuits. You want to be successful in your real estate. We're here to help. Here's my card. Okay, all right, now I don't know, those 2 minutes, probably a little bit less, but you get the idea. I would believe that someone who talked to me and heard me say that, they got a gist of what I do for them. Now, they might not understand a hill of beans about private money anymore, and I might understand a hill of beans about how to make a cake. But when I take that first bite, I know everything I need to know about that cake, okay? But they got me to take the bite, That's the key thing. That's what your 2-minute elevator pitch is. And when you think you got a good one, test it on people, see what they say. The first thing you want to take note of is, are they paying attention? Or did you capture their imagination? Do you have their interest, all right? And then you want to see their face. Are they, looking like I look sometimes when I'm listening, but trying to, what are they talking about? Or are they smiling? Oh, I get it. And then you want to ask them, and ask for their honest opinion. Maybe try it on strangers, because, you tell your family and friends, they're either going to tell you good or bad just because, that's how they are. But, talk to strangers, say, what do you think about this? Blah, 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 blah. All right, and see what feedback you get. Because, again, your ability to communicate value to your customer is the most important thing to get them to want and desire your solution, by owning the benefits and value of your product, and they're willing to give you their money. And you get enough of it, and you get it so that you can make a profit, and your business continues and grows. All right, so let's recap. I've given you a whole lot, and I hope that you had your pen and paper. This is going to be on YouTube, all right? So if you need to go back and research it and watch it again, all these slides are part of the presentation. But the SBA says that most businesses fail. 90% of them fail, but by having a business plan, you double the odds of success. Now, when you double something, that means you increase your odds of success by 100%. I can't beat 100%. And if you're smart and you're doing what I'm telling you to do, you'll be on the side of the angels, as I said, by breaking the odds, not feeding into those negative statistics, and again, do what the money tells you to do, and the money tells you to have a plan. Now, there are 6 primary factors that you must think through as part of your planning. Now, you can go to SBA.gov and find a template for a business plan. But now, what I've given you today is not a business plan format. I've given you all the things that a business plan is going to ask you to think about. So remember, the thinking comes before the writing. All right, so from the standpoint that going through the exercise of producing a business plan is going to force you to think all this stuff through. But right now, where you're sitting with your notebook and that dream in your mind and your heart about your business idea, start thinking about these things. Being very rigorous about the thought process is going to help you to not be inefficient and flawed in your execution. Bring in help. Ask people their opinions. The Small Business Administration in just about every major city has a small business development center that is there to help you. Service Corps of Retired Executives, SCORE, is there to help you. The Private Money Syndicate is there to help you. So the key thing is understand that if you address those 6 factors in the ways that we've discussed today in planning your successful business launch, you and your business will be a success. Again, as we wrap up and close out, the sponsor, Private Money Syndicate, who's here to power your dreams with private money. You can go to our website, privatemoneysyndicate.com, or give us a call at 706-888-3719. And we've been so glad to be here with you today to talk about how to plan your successful business launch. And if you've got any ideas for the Mind Your Business show, because sometimes I run out of ideas, but if you'd like to have us talk about something, please give us a call at 706-888-3719. You can email me directly at privatemoneygodfather.com. And of course, you can go to our website. Well, that's it for today, folks. It's been a pleasure. And as I always say, if you're going to go in business and stay in business, you got to mind your business.